The average solo GP is dead. Being handcuffed to a practice that only makes money while you're drilling crushes your freedom. Being trapped at the office is no way to experience life. And doing more fillings and crowns ain't the answer to freedom. Stop it. Freedom comes when your practice makes money without you. Freedom is choosing how many days and how you dental. Ready to forge your freedom? Then keep listening to become a super GP and super CEO. This is the Titanium Practice Podcast with your host, Dr. Stephen Freeman. Let's go.
Hello, all you beautiful people, and welcome back to yet another episode of the Titanium Practice Podcast. I am your host and personal freedom coach, Dr. Stephen Freeman. Thank you so much for joining me today. So this is going to be basically a follow-up, a continuation, if you will, of our conversation about long-term thinking. And today's really going to focus on longevity. And I should say, if you didn't really listen to the other podcast about long-term thinking, it's the one right before this. And so I would encourage you to go back and listen to that one first and then pick this one right back up. But this one focuses a little bit more on your health. All right. So we need to be thinking, again, long-term about where you are headed with goals. That's both personal and professional about what you're looking at. But you need to be able to, one, obtain those goals, and then two, enjoy those goals. And so when you're thinking long-term, you have to be thinking about being able to be healthy enough to enjoy those things, to be able to get to that point of your freedom. And it just makes the journey along the way all that much better, and it makes the reward at the end of the rainbow, so to speak, that much sweeter because you're able to truly enjoy it. As I touched on the other day, my mom, she's in pretty good health, but she has trouble getting around. She can't go, she doesn't enjoy the beach, first and foremost, but if she did enjoy the beach, she literally wouldn't be able to walk on the sand by herself to go down to the beach. That's it. My mom's days of going to the beach are over. And she's in pretty good health. I think she has a number of years left to live. She's coming up on 75, but I still think she has a bunch of years left to live. We went to Disney for a big family reunion recently. And it was this whole thing the whole time about her, so we rented one of these really big houses. They've got these houses in Orlando, and obviously they have them elsewhere as well. We got a 15-bedroom house, with the pool and the thing had 2 refrigerators, 2 washers and dryers. They knew a ton of people were going to be staying here. And it was awesome. It was great. A lot of us hadn't seen each other since before COVID. We were able to spend a lot of time together. And what was really striking about it is a lot of the things that we did we made sure that we accommodated my mom, made sure that she had a bedroom that had a bathroom connected to it downstairs so that she didn't have to walk upstairs at all. We made sure, at the park, she was one of those folks with the little rascal scooter kind of scooting around the park, pissing everybody off because she'd almost hit their ankles every couple of seconds. Finally, I got annoyed doing that, and I ended up pushing her around the park in a regular wheelchair the rest of the time. But we kept making accommodations for her, and obviously you need to do that to some degree for people as they get a little bit older. But what was really striking is one of the people that was there at the family reunion was her sister. Her sister's a year older than her. Her sister, my aunt, looks amazing. Absolutely amazing. She looks exactly the same as she did when she was 56, let alone being 76 now. And that's a testament to a lot of the things that she has done in her life to get her ready to do that, which my mother did not do. My mother is very sedentary. My aunt's very, outgoing. She does a lot of things. She golfs. She has tennis. She's taken up a second career as being a a commercial actress. I mean, nothing that you would have ever seen her in, but at the same time, enough to get her out there and busy and doing something. And so there comes this kind of idea, and the Japanese have this idea of something called ikigai. And the idea is that you have a purpose or reason to get out of the bed in the morning. Now, for whatever reason, my mother, she's a good grandmother. She loves her grandkids. She hasn't really made them like a focus in her life, though, now that she really doesn't have much to do. My father's passed away. She lives in a home by herself. She's not really into church. She's not really outgoing with friends. Holy crap, this all sounds sad, right? It is. It is kind of sad. And this is a discussion that I have with her about this, of the fact that she needs to be doing things to get out of the house, to get connection with other people. I call her every day. I call her almost every single day. Because if I don't call her, I don't know if she'll talk to another human being. Well, I don't know about you, but I think that sounds like crap. I don't want to live that way. I don't want that. She, again, I don't know, for whatever reason, hasn't tried to grasp onto something to make it her reason to wake up in the morning. What is her purpose? What is it that she's going to do in that day? Because most of what she does right now is paperwork. She literally moves papers from one stack to another. And I'm not ragging on my mom. This is just literally what she does. And I call her the busiest person in the world. When's the last time you went to the post office? I'm willing to bet it's been a long time since you last went to the post office. She goes nearly weekly to the post office. Who the hell does that? Nobody. So there needs to be something that you're going to do. That can be anything. It could be anything, but it needs to be a compelling reason for you to get up. It can be your kids. It can be the thought and the promise, hopefully, of grandkids in the future. It could be the idea that you want to travel the world with friends, your significant other. You want to go see everything. You want to make sure that you walk on all 7 continents before it's all said and done. You want to make sure that you have played every golf course along any one of these trails that they've got. You want to make sure that you've just played every golf course that you can think of. It just needs to be a compelling enough reason that you have a reason to get up out of the bed in the morning. And they have shown conclusively that if you've got a reason to get up, that you're more likely to live longer. So you need to keep that in mind. And for some people, that's going to be holding on to the practice. The practice can be your reason to get up. You come in, oh, hey, Dr. Freeman, nice to see you. That's a good feeling. These people need me. I mean, they don't, and they shouldn't, especially by that point in time. But it might be your reason to get up in the morning. Or maybe make your office's mission to give back. And that becomes your mission, your reason. It doesn't need to be financial, and it doesn't need to be personally rewarding to you as far as you increasing your bank account or it necessarily be directly related to you, but it can be in service of others. I have talked about one of our core values at our practice, and it's the acronym SMILE, and the S is it's service. It's being generous. It's in service of others. And I think that's a really important concept to say that that can be your reason, is because you have an amazing skill set. Regardless of all the crap that we talk about inflation, about maybe staff members who piss you off, about, Mrs. Jones who's pissed off about her crown because she doesn't like the fact that it's slightly different than all the other crappy looking teeth that she's got in her mouth. Whatever that all is, you have an incredible skill set that makes people healthier. Very, very few people get to wake up in the morning and make people better. That is an awesome power, and we forget about that because there's so much crap that gets piled on top of that. There's so many barriers to get to that point that we forget that. Not to keep on bringing up COVID and talking about, COVID a number of times, but it was conclusively proven that people with bad periodontal disease, and it makes all the sense in the world when you go back to this, had worse outcomes from COVID than people who had healthy mouths. It was conclusively proven that showed that. We literally were on the front lines of the pandemic to help stop this spread. And what did our governing body, the ADA, do? They recommended we stop practicing dentistry. Even though we had been prepared for this because of what went through of dentistry and the health scare back during HIV and all the things we learned from that. And yet they shut us down and stopped us from being able to be on the front lines of helping these people. That's who's trying to lead our people. Damn, that sucks. So I need you to push all of that crap aside of what stops us from realizing that and look into the fact that you have an extraordinary skill. Congratulations. It's awesome. It really, really is. And not enough people really truly talk about that, of you go in the morning and you truly make people better. And most people don't get to say that. So good job. But you need to have a reason. Come up with what that reason is, and so that you can be building toward that. I've talked about the fact before that I have a not-for-profit, the Warrior Smiles, that we do work with helping get veterans smiles. That's very rewarding. I don't know if that's going to be my reason to get out of bed in the morning, or if that's just something I'm going to do while I am practicing. But for now, who knows? Maybe that ends up being my reason. But you need to have a reason, and you need to come up with that is. I don't care what it is, travel, family, golfing, drinking, whatever. Whatever it is that gets you up out of bed in the morning, get after it so you can make sure that you set forth in having that in place for the long term. But how are you going to get there? So we need to talk about, and I touched on it, this idea of not just lifespan. We're not just talking about trying to get to a number, but we're trying to get to the point of being able to enjoy what we're doing while we're doing it. So again, as I said, my mom can't really move around very well. And if that sounds kind of like a scary proposition, it should scare you. I don't know how many of you have had enough time spending time around folks who are about 70. But it's become completely clear to me through observation of other people's families, my family in particular, that your warranty runs out at 70. So you better be ready. And you better have really started to think about that fact of we need to be pushing that number beyond 70. But for all the old people in my life, it all went to shit at 70. That's when all their major medical problems really started to rear their heads. And so we need to be prepared for that, and you prepare for that now in the decisions that you make today. And really the number one thing that you can be doing above anything else to prepare yourself for this is exercise. It's the number one thing you can do. And it's far and away number one. Yes, there's a certain amount of eating and drinking that have something to do with it. General lifestyle choices, obviously smoking, sleep. These are all factors that play into it. But it's number one by a country mile of the fact that exercise is the number one thing you can do. And there's a very famous longevity expert, Dr. Peter Attia, who I encourage you to read his books as we make things more available at Titanium Practice Coaching clients of being able to access our book reviews, his books will absolutely be on there to read and review the specifics of what Peter had to say in his couple of books that I have read, is the fact that you need to be focusing on strength, stability, and then two types of basically zones when you exercise, of the aerobic zone 2 and the anaerobic zone 5. But I'm going to start with strength training because it's cooler. Everyone likes talking about pumping iron. Okay? I do it for an hour every day, which is longer than Peter says to do it. But I think it's that important. So I do it about 5 to 6 days a week. I do strength training. And the reason, or his reason to do it, is think about you, as we age, the speed at which your muscles degrade speeds up. It gets faster. So for every decade, you lose an enormous amount of strength. And think about what you want to be able to do. Do you want to be able to be climbing 14,000 foot mountains out in Colorado when you're 70? You better be training beyond that now, because it's all going to decrease as you get older. If you want to be able to pick up your grandchild when you're 60, you need to be able to pick up something heavier than a sack of potatoes now. And so you need to be overshooting it because it's going to decline as you get older. So if you start at a higher place, when it inevitably declines, which it will, you'll be starting at a better spot. And so you need to be overtraining for those things now. And strength training is really important. So we said if you're not doing this, and I said in one of my opening podcasts, and we talked about it, is if you're doing nothing now, you've got to start doing something instead. Okay? So we talked about doing some squats, air squats. Okay? Just pumping your legs up and down. Look up videos for it. I'm not going to tell you the exact way to do it because I'm not a personal trainer, but if you're doing some air squats, and if you end up doing push-ups, and end up doing core movements of sit-ups as well, and you put those things together and you start getting that engine moving, you can then move on to more advanced things. And for some of you, you're sitting here laughing and saying, of course I can do a push-up. Well, great, awesome, I'm glad you can, but there are some people who have not taken to doing physical exercise, and they need to get the ball rolling. And it's intimidating to walk into a gym. It is. It's very intimidating to walk into a gym. There's equipment you don't know how to use, which, again, there's videos all over the place on YouTube. Look into it so you don't feel intimidated walking into a gym. I think most of us now live in areas that are fairly close to a gym or some type of I still loved Orange Theory, and you make fun of it all you want, don't care. I worked out with the house moms all day long, and it was great, and I got in great, and that was when I was at my slimmest. I'm at my strongest now, and I left Orange Theory because now I've moved on to working with much more strength training than I was about just focusing on losing weight. But all of these different studios that are out there, I would encourage you to look into joining one, because you need to be doing strength training to get you ready for the long term of what it is that you need to be doing to be able to do the activities that you want to be able to doing. So you can go golfing, so you can hold your grandkids, so you can go on vacation. We went to, I mentioned I'm a big Ohio State football fan. We went to the Ohio State game this past year against Penn State. Awesome time. Kids' first game, it was amazing. As I'm climbing the stairs, though, there's an older gentleman, and we had really great seats. We were 18 rows up, so we really weren't climbing too many rows at all. But as I was climbing up, there was an older gentleman right next to me. I'm going to guess he was in his early 60s. I mean, I thought those 18 steps were going to kill him. He couldn't do it. He couldn't climb 18 steps, which is probably about what it takes to climb from the first floor to a second floor of a house. And I'm like, God, I don't want to be like that. And obviously he could have had a medical condition, and I feel badly for him. But I think a lot of people maybe aren't making the preparations now that they need to be ready for that so they can do those things when they're older. So strength training. Get into strength training now, and it can be simple as, like I said, air squats, push-ups, and sit-ups, and you just kind of do those in a cycle. Just do them in a cycle and keep doing them, and eventually a month or two will go by and you say, well, I can do more than that. What else more is there? And then that's when you can get yourself into a gym. And so you're moving yourself along, baby steps along the way. It doesn't happen overnight, but you can get yourself into one of those gyms and focus on building up some strength and then building up a lot of strength. And you can do it, okay? Another one would be talking about the aerobic zones. So the idea is doing the aerobic zone 2 that he talks about is kind of the idea of doing a very, it's like a light jog is really what that's talking about. And even at that, that's going to be almost too fast to get most people out of zone 2. It's going to move you along into the next zone right after that. But a light jog, a very, very brisk walk, somewhere in there is what it takes to get you into zone 2. He actually recommends biking more. He felt like there was more control in staying in zone 2 for that particular purpose. And that is really kind of your fat burning zone. And so that was the idea, to stay in that zone. And I'll go back and say Orange Theory again, is they focus on the zones. They focus on 2 and 5. So obviously there's a decent amount of science out there that suggests that Peter's onto the right thing, that these are the zones that we need to be focusing on. So I would encourage you to say, let me back up. It's about the whole idea of varying your heart rate. So your body does not want to do the same thing all the time. That's from day to day, week to week, month to month, but it's also within your particular workout. So the heart really wants to change that up quite a bit. Wants to do some things very short and fast, and then slow and steady for a while. Short and fast, slow and steady. And so that's where that HIIT, the high intensity interval training, comes from. So it's the variability of that makes your heart function better and just really builds up your stamina to do things. So I'm not necessarily that big fan of always saying just go out for a long run. So I change it up. I have some days that I'm kind of slow and steady, mix it up with just a little bit of short running, and then I have other days where I do high intensity running and then mix it in with some longer periods of running, just to switch it up. And then I do one longer run during the course of the week as well. And so I have that all mapped out for myself to make sure that I am changing it. And I don't necessarily know that I'm doing it right. What I do know is right is the fact of the variability of the heart rate. You don't want your body to be accustomed to doing anything. The more your body is caught off guard in what you are doing, the better it is for it. Okay? So that moves along to these ideas of, there was a show on Disney Plus called Limitless with Chris Hemsworth. And it brought up some ideas that I had heard before, but they talked about the fact of doing these things that make your body uncomfortable for a very short amount of time leads to longevity. They have conclusively shown that if you do the last 30 seconds, so just the last 30 seconds of your shower every day is in very cold water, it reduces your sick time. They've conclusively have shown that. There's also a bunch of other things. Makes your hair healthier, makes your skin healthier. But that blast of cold air at the very end will make you healthier. And it just needs to be that 30 seconds. Obviously, we can talk about doing polar plunges and ice baths and things like that. But if you won't do the 30 seconds in the shower, there's no real point in talking about that. So again, baby steps. That's where we start. We say, starting at, if you can make your shower the last 30 seconds really cold, turn it all the way back to the other side from your nice steam shower that you're taking, and take a cold shower, it will improve your health all by itself. Then if you want to get more advanced, then you can start looking into things like those ice baths. But start with the shower. See where it gets you. See how it feels. Man, it is brutal and it is tough. It is very tough to do. And I try to keep myself doing it. I'm not great at continuing to do it, but I try to do it as often as I possibly can. The flip side of that is saunas. Read up on saunas, because subjecting the body to intense heat like that for short periods of time, again, changes your body. It makes it healthier. And you lose weight. Sitting in a sauna is a great way to burn calories because it gets your heart rate up. Your heart is pumping. And it wants to be able to adapt to its new surrounding of what it's not used to being sitting in. So it's this variability that gets the body into a healthier state. And that's where the idea of intermittent fasting comes from as well. So intermittent fasting is the idea of we're not going to continually give the body food. And I go back to thinking again about the idea of a caveman. Did a caveman have the local grocery store or have Grubhub or have grocery delivery service to their house? Hell no, they didn't. And I don't need to tell you that. You know they didn't. They did not eat a meal all the time. And that's also one of the reasons why it makes it so difficult for us to burn fat, is because the body knew we were going to go a long time in between meals. It was prepared for that. It was not prepared to have snacks every couple of hours. Now again, I'm not a dietitian, but think logically about it. Do you honestly really think cavemen had access to food to be able to snack all day, as they kind of talk about keeping the furnace lit and burning calories all day long? No, they didn't. They had to go foraging or fend themselves off from something else wanting to eat them. It's just logic. It's simple logic. So I do not ascribe to the idea that you need to be eating 3 square meals a day and then snacking in between and making sure it's a healthy snack and blah, 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 blah. I think that's stupid. So how you intermittent fast is your choice. You can do is simply saying, I'm just going to skip breakfast. Oh, the most important meal of the day. Cool. As I've mentioned in another podcast, most of the time of what I'm doing is I'm doing a 20-hour fast and a 4-hour cycle of eating. So I eat pretty much whatever I want in those 4 hours to a degree. I always start with what I think the body needs. And again, I'm not a dietitian, so I don't know exactly what it needs, but I know it wants leafy greens. I know it wants cruciferous vegetables, and I know it wants fermented food, and I know it wants nuts and berries. I start with that. That's how I break my fast. And a lot of the time you'll be amazed, and if you're drinking the amount of water that you're supposed to be drinking, which it needs to be over a gallon a day, you'll be amazed how full you're going to be after you have the servings of those. And it's all healthy, great stuff. Great. If you're still hungry and you want to eat whatever you want to eat, go ahead. I bet it's going to turn out pretty damn well. Okay? Obviously, there's a limit to that, but I bet you're going to be pretty darn full after you've eaten those things and broken your fast. I'd encourage you every once in a while to see if you can do a longer fast than that, because the real cleaning up that the body does with intermittent fasting really happens right around the 24-hour mark. That's when it really sets out a lot of growth hormones, and it cleans up a lot of the crap that it doesn't have a chance to clean up when you're eating 3 meals a day and snacking in between things. So I'd encourage you to go look that all up. That's the nuts and bolts of it, though. But it doesn't really matter the time that you do it, other than to say longer typically is better. But make sure that you're giving the body the nutrients that it actually wants. Please, take a multivitamin along the way to make sure you are continuing to get the nutrition that your body needs. Consult a dietitian if you want. They're going to tell you that's all bunk. Okay, fine. But at the same time, what we're talking about is longevity. That's what we're trying to get. So I'm a huge believer in the fermented foods, kombucha, kimchi, sauerkraut. I eat sauerkraut pretty much every day, and I try to drink kombucha every day. Those are kind of my go-to. Sweet potatoes are really great for your gut too. They really have shown that your gut is basically your brain 2.0, and you want to feed it. And so a plant-based diet, and man, it is tough. I had a big old fat cheeseburger tonight for dinner. It was amazing. With the American cheese dripping off the sides of it. It was great. It was absolutely amazing. But as best you can, focus on having a plant-based diet. It has also conclusively shown that you will live longer if you eat a plant-based diet. So please try to err on the side of that. I think when people talk about the Mediterranean diet, I think that falls well within the talk of having a plant-based diet, because most of their protein then comes from fish. I can't do the sardine thing. I'm sorry. I can't do it. But we do have salmon once a week. And I probably should bump up the ration of fish that my family is eating. But at the same time, you do the best that you can. But we do it every Tuesday night is salmon night, so that I can get my kids some omega-3 fatty acids into their body, so we can get that serving of fish. But I think that's the protein you should be focusing on. Fish and eggs are my two big proteins that I try to go to. So keep that all in mind. But for the most part, those are the big things. Is, again, number one, exercise is the number one way that you're going to be able to live longer. But you need to make sure that you focus on your nutrition along the way and feed your gut first and foremost. And you're going to do that with plants. You have to have the emotion, the ikigai part of it, a purpose or reason for this. You come up with what that is. Just like you're going to come up with whatever you want your practice to look like, you're going to come up with what that looks like. And then there are other things. Make your body uncomfortable at times, and that really does seem to release hormones that help your body live longer and clean up the crap that builds up in our bodies from our day-to-day living. And if you do those things, you will absolutely live longer, and you'll live a happier, healthy, longer life. Okay? So hopefully those pointers help you out. That's all I really got for you today. I want to thank you for joining us. And as always, if I can be of any help to you, please head on over to the Titanium Practice podcast. The Titanium Practice website, and download our book. And if I can be of help to you, click on that coaching button. We'd be more than happy to have you in our coaching group, be it in groups or in one-on-one coaching, to see how we can get you to freedom faster. All right? As always, I am dedicated to your freedom. I love having you here. Thanks for joining me. Have a great day. All right? Thanks. Bye.
You've been listening to the Titanium Practice Podcast with your host, Dr. Stephen Freeman. Please hit the like and subscribe button and follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube at Titanium Practice. Questions or comments? Send an email to info@titaniumpractice.com. Join us next time to help turn your average practice into a titanium practice.